Good morning and welcome to NeoConnect 2020. NeoConnect is NeoCon's online series of resources, programming, and events held throughout the month of June. I'm Monica DiBartolo, NeoCon's Director of Programming, and I want to thank you for joining us. Today's session is approved for 1 CEU credit for interior designers and 1 LU credit for architects. It is also being recorded so you can access it on demand. Please refer to your screen for more details on that. We begin this week with an inspirational program, Using Creativity to Spark Creativity. Creativity, like other skills, should be strengthened and nurtured. It is vitally important to arouse unique ideas and implement them in new ways, or to help look at space and problems and imagine things that have never been done before. This morning, you will hear from design experts representing various design genres who will discuss their many sources of creativity and how they use it to guide their revolutionary work. Joining us today are Giona Maiarelli, owner of Maiarelli Studio in Brooklyn, New York, Elizabeth von Lehe, Design and Brand Strategy Principal at HDR in New York, Gareth Brennan, founder of Eventscape in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, Mike Johnson, Senior Associate of Perkins & Will in Washington, D.C., and our panel moderator, Chris Abbate, President of Novita Communications in New York. And now I'm delighted to turn the program over to Chris Abbate.
Chris, I think you're muted.
Myself. Thank you, guys. I did such a nice welcome. Thank you for being with us here this morning for NeoConnect and NeoCon. We're so happy to have this opportunity to gather together and to learn together in this virtual way. So thank you, Monica, for the initial introduction. I want to first start out with telling a little more about our 4 panelists because I was so happy to bring this group together for this conversation. So as Monica mentioned, our first panelist is Mike Johnson II. He's a Washington, D.C. native and a senior associate at Perkins & Will, and he has a license both as an architect and an interior designer and a combined 17 years of experience. His work is focused on providing innovative and creative solutions for commercial interior spaces that incorporate the latest research and trends. His belief is that design is a careful and thoughtful process through captivating storytelling and embraces qualities to create a one-of-a-kind solution for each client. He's currently the president of IADA Mid-Atlantic Chapter and was recently featured in IADA's Perspective magazine in the article, The Instagram Effect. So thank you, Mike. So glad to meet you and have you join us. Giona Maiarelli is an old friend and a longtime partner to me and to Novita. He is the founder and creative director of Maiarelli Studio, which is a design studio specializing in branding, art direction, and visual communication. He's based in Brooklyn, New York, and his studio is best known for their work for design and furniture companies in our space particularly. And he also works for nonprofit arts and cultural institutions. And you'll know him also for his NeoCon work since 2018 and for Novita. He started his company 25 years ago. Oh, actually, he's actually 28. He's been working with us for almost 25 years. Elizabeth von Lehe is our next panelist. She's the design and brand strategy principal at HDR. She leads the architecture firm's efforts to advance a holistic approach to design, embracing not only the built form, but branding, curation, and the development of the user experience from every angle. Von Lehe previously worked at I Crave Design, and before that, she worked for both Target and Land's End. So I think it's a really interesting background on that side too. She's based in New York, and Von Lehe is well known throughout the design profession as a leader in the field of experience design. She's a regular speaker of advocating for experience design to encourage cross-disciplinary collaboration and integration beyond what most designers usually practice. She's the chair of the Executive Advisory Committee for ASID and is a regular graduate mentor and panelist for our alma mater, Columbia University. So thank you. And then Gareth. Okay, so wait, actually Gareth's, actually, one second, Gareth's thing got deleted from this document, but Gareth is the founder of Eventscape, an innovative fabrication and art company that started in Canada and now has 15,000 square feet of manufacturing and fabrication space and employs 150 employees. His company works directly with designers and architects throughout the world on fabrication and art projects that range from feature walls to entire buildings and art installations. And he's an incredibly creative and innovative force in design and fabrication. And he works with many of our NeoCon partners in this space. So thank you, Gareth, for joining us as well. So we're going to start the conversation together, and with each question, I'm going to kind of pose it to one, and then we'll all jump in and have a chance to kind of share some thoughts on each of the areas of creativity. I think creativity for a lot of us is a topic very close to our hearts, and it affects everything that we're doing during this crisis. A lot of creative solutions have been kind of just so impressively and quickly found, and I think there's just a lot in this moment to look at this issue and this tool that we all have to create a better world. So I'm going to start with the first question. I'm going to hit it to Giona first, and first question is, how can we use creativity outside of the workplace to spark the creativity required to design the unimaginable? How do our personal creative activities enhance the professional process?
Okay, so thank you for the introduction, Chris. So my way of fostering creativity actually didn't start with the pandemic. I started in 2016. After the election, I decided that I wanted to do something for myself. And what I wanted to do was making collages. And the way I structured this little experiment was that I would take the New York Times, which I receive every day at home, and I would, after reading it at night, I would cut it up, and I would try to find the elements to make a collage every day from the New York Times of that day. And that was based on the fact that I've always been a big recycler. When I started my career many years ago, we used to work with, used to make our layouts by hands. We would buy very expensive Pantone sheets of color paper. I don't know if anybody remembers those, but I remember that for a budding graphic designer, it was a very expensive tool to have. And so after doing a presentation, instead of trashing them, the bits and pieces that were left, I would make collages. My parents have still some of those hanging up in their home. So I've always been a big believer in sort of recycling things and taking opportunity even of the leftovers. And so what I quickly discovered doing this work with the collages, that it's very similar to the work that we do as a creative professional, because we usually work with a brief that is set by a client, and those are our limits. And doing collages from the New York Times of that day obviously has very strict limits, and there was a very similar process. So in a way, I was sort of replicating daily the creative process that I didn't have the chance to do every day in my work, because, you know, as we all know, our work sometimes is also managing projects and talking to people and doing phone calls and emails and all of that. So it became a very rewarding experience. I sort of revived this experience after the pandemic. After we started working from home, I didn't have the commuting time. I had a little bit more time in my hands. And so I revived this practice, and I expanded it beyond working with the New York Times, which I still love. But I like to do what I call single source collages. So I take only one magazine or one book or one publication, and I work only with the material that I find there. And it's been a very good exercise for my creativity, because really has helped me train my eye and my brain to just looking, but also seeing things that were not supposed to be there, making unusual connections. And I think that it's, you know, creativity is like I think Mike said in one of our, you know, our preparatory talk, it's really a muscle that needs to be exercised. And this sort of daily exercise, it's been very good. Like I wake up refreshed the morning after. I feel like I certainly more desire to be creative, and I certainly see more opportunities within the limits of the brief that my clients, that the client give you when you have to do a project. And the other interesting thing that I found out, and I wasn't aware when I decided to do this experiment, is that I've been a consumer of art for most of my life, and I greatly enjoy that aspect. I enjoy going to museums, and I enjoy going to galleries, and I always thought that for a creative director, an art director, a designer, it's fundamental to do that, you know, to be constantly inspired. But after I started doing my collages, I discovered that actually it's a lot more powerful to be a maker of art rather than a consumer of art. Being a consumer of art leaves you always with the appetite of creating something, lots of ideas, but you never put them down on paper. At least I didn't. Having these sort of daily exercises of having to create art, because we can't go to a museum right now and the galleries are closed. Of course, there is a lot of stuff online, but that's another question that's always there. And I don't find the art quite as inspiring. Being forced to being a maker of art actually provoked me to want to make even more and produce even more art. So that's been my experience with the collages. You can see actually some of them are hanging behind me. I have books that are full of them. Yeah, so this is my experiences with creating art.
That's,
You know,
that's wonderful. And I think I know, Mike, you had something to share on this too. And I think thank you for sharing that.
yeah, I just wanted to say, you did mention about creativity is like a muscle. That's something that I learned from one of my mentors at Perkins and Will. And what he kind of meant about that is that in order to master your craft, right, just like an athlete, one must learn how to harness your abilities, and through that you have to strengthen and practice design in creative ways. And you know, for me, one of the things that I have been doing is since I was a little kid, I've always kind of focused on art in some sort of way, whether if it was woodcut or oil paintings or watercolors. And that's obviously when I had a little bit more time on my hands. Now that we are kind of in this pandemic world, I have a little bit more time on my hands to start to express myself in different ways that I haven't been able to before. And using iPads actually in order to kind of facilitate those types of things, especially when you have a limited size condo like I do in DC. It becomes very freeing to be able to do something like that without having to have tools to hold you back from using that. But that's something that I think that I started at the beginning of the pandemic. I think that now my art has started to focus on absorbing art, specifically art related to through protesting and through a change in social and racial equality. I think that art now and creativity now is a way that we can kind of speak to things that we can't put into words. And it becomes very important to kind of understand what people are going through, and it is being out there, it is being aware. But we've always noticed in history that art through music, whether if it's physical or digital, is a way for people to be creative and speak their mind and speak their voice. You know, a couple artists that I'm reminded of and that I've been very focused on is one, you kind of mentioned The New Yorker. The New Yorker's new cover by Kadir Nelson, Say Their Names, is a very powerful piece of art. what is his name? Kehinde Wiley's, who did the Barack Obama portrait, and some of the other portraits that he's doing now through the Black Lives Matter cause. And, you know, even something as simple as the Black Lives Matter Plaza art that's being done on 16th Street. It's a very powerful statement, even though it's, you know, in its simplest terms. It's kind of interesting to see how that has changed over this time during this pandemic and in different ways emotionally. So that's how I've been doing that.
And that's wonderful. I think we're all, there's just so much going on and to respond to. And I think that was really a beautiful way to weave in the newest kind of work that we've been able to kind of share and see, and how that's affecting how you as a creative are responding to that. My next question, and again, we can kind of bring things back and forth, is how are the challenges of this current crisis driving innovation solutions for your personal and professional lives, and what particular opportunities do difficult conditions and constraints present? And I wanted to have Gareth kind of handle this, because as start us off on this, because as a creative entrepreneur, he's just pivoted in such an impressive way, and is you know, kind of looking at this issue of the coronavirus, you know, piece of what's going on right now in a very direct way, and has used his creativity in that direction. Gareth, I don't know if you would start us off there.
Well, thank you, Chris. I'm going to go back to, I think it was around March 16th, a few days before my birthday, and we're unique in that we're fortunate enough to work for architects and designers, and we call ourselves somewhat of an architectural toy factory, where creatives can come to us and together we'll collaborate and we'll build things that are really unique. Any material, they're typically big complex features that go inside or outside of buildings. So this is what we do and how we spend our days. We have about 160 employees. We have about 150,000 square feet in Toronto, and we have 20,000 square feet in New York, or LIC, should I say?
It's just,
and,
just open.
which we were supposed to have our grand opening mid-May. We're so excited. But so the challenges that we were faced with were a little bit different in that, I mean, immediately I was faced with the reality that I have to figure out how to keep 160 people employed. And fortunately, we had a lot of work already in the pipeline that was prefabricated, but we also had to figure out how we're going to facilitate continuing to work. So right away, we sent all of the front of house, so all of our design and engineering teams are working from home, the project managers are working from home, and the sales teams as well. But manufacturing was still working, and we had we have 4 manufacturing facilities. So immediately we had to put safe working conditions into place, which involved cleaners around the clock, social distancing. The teams were working with cleaning bottles with them. So they were all very comfortable doing this. And we did this from day one. And we developed routines. And so we were able to keep prefabricating a lot of our projects. But it still gave us some capacity on the front end with design. So we realized there was a crisis going on, and we realized that we could help. So we decided to launch 2 new brands. We launched an older brand that we had started years ago, actually launched at NeoCon, I think 15 years ago, called Lehe, L-E-E-F. And Lehe has been brought back to life, and it is providing modular privacy solutions. So modular privacy screens. We've been coming up with custom solutions for office spaces. For Citibank across the US, we came up with unique solutions to protect their frontline workers and their customers that are coming into the bank. So we were accommodating a number of solutions in that respect, even dealing with casinos. How are they going to reopen? Dealing with office spaces, coming up with custom solutions, allowing people to reopen when it is time to reopen. So that was Lehe, and that was a lot of fun, a lot of fast track work where we get a phone call from a client, and we'd spend the weekend designing solutions, present them on a Monday with pricing, and they would often give us the go-ahead on the Tuesday. So it was really unique, fast track. And then the other project that we started was Capsule, K-A-P-S-E-L. And Capsule, we came up with a version of face shield. We found that there was obviously a great need for PPE and face shields. So we came up with a solution that is a box that holds 100 face shields, and it's a DIY solution. It enables companies to store them in a small storage room without taking up a lot of space. They assemble in 40 seconds or so. So we spent about 3 or 4 weeks developing this, and then we tried to take it out to market. And something else that we did, the more that we had sold, actually we started off donating them. We donated tens of thousands of dollars of these privacy shields and the face shields to smaller businesses and restaurants. And at the same time, we were trying to sell it to larger corporations and use the proceeds to further donate to smaller restaurants and people that simply couldn't afford to do these things. So we're trying to help smaller business open up. So it felt good to do something and to help in a small way. And it really united us as a team, which I found to be quite challenging, having people working from home. I find you lose a little bit of that sort of culture and that feel. And, that's what we're fighting to do now, is to sort of unite us all and get us feeling the way we did when we were all sitting in the same office space. So those are some of the challenges we faced, and creatively, that's how we came up with some solutions.
With Gareth is he comes up with an idea and then it becomes a reality. Like, okay, now you got this amazing capability. You'll have to come see him in the city of New York once we're able to reopen. So thank you for sharing that, Gareth, because I think I was just kind of blown away when I heard about that. I actually, on the weekend, I was seeing what Rockwell Group is doing, a whole new process, like a whole new kit of parts for restaurants and how they can serve reopen. And so just like looking at these different teams, how they're looking, taking some of the time that in some cases the PPEs afforded us to kind of come up with a creative solution that we can kind of put out there to move things forward. And in the case of Gareth and Eventscape and these two new entities, the frontline workers. So thank you for sharing that. I could go on to the next question perhaps, which I know several of you guys wanted to talk about, which was empathy and its sort of relation to the creative process. Elizabeth, I think you were going to kind of start us off with that.
Yeah, sure. It's funny, as you were reading my bio, sometimes I forget all the places I've worked and the different things I've done. And I wanted to start with a little bit of what I do at HDR, and in the team that I lead, I've got architects, graphic designers, interior designers, product designers, finding people. There's this sort of amalgamated superheroes group, but that also reflects sort of my own background, starting in product design and fashion design, going into architecture and interiors, and eventually multiple touch points together. The heart of the way that we think about design, and I know that everyone on this call feels the same, is through a lens of empathy. You don't design a space that's effective without putting yourself in the shoes of that end user you're serving, not just the client that's sitting across from you at the table, but the person, their client, the person that's going to be in that hospital, that's going to be in that daycare, that's going to be in that school. So how that then relates to our current situation, where we're all reporting out from our control centers in our living room right now. And I think that there's been this sort of evolving approach to empathy and our use of the creative practice in these times. There's something, Mike, you said a moment ago that I really loved, which was talking about these creative skills being muscles that we had to exercise. And in some ways, I swam when I was in high school, but also they made us run. And because of that other exercise being done, it made us better at the core one. The same is true in our practices as creatives, as creators, and that has evolved over the timeline of the COVID crisis. First, it was sort of this emergency response time. It was all about problem solving. HDR is a very large company. We've got around the planet, many of which have 3D printers. And I know we're not unique in this. It sounds like, Gareth, you guys were up to it at scale, but people with these skills wanted to help be part of that emergency response. And we're figuring out, okay, how can we 3D print and do the logistics to send those pieces? There's problem solving and creativity in that first phase of the experience. Once that quells a bit, it's shifted into this more personal edification phase of creativity in COVID, which was about enhancement and growth. And I think that that's been a common experience for many on this call, and also listening and watching in on this call. Giona has his awesome collages behind him. I have my terrible, if it looks like there's a little old man peeking over my shoulder, that's a pot in process. I've been sculpting these weird pots with like Muppet faces, and that's been more about just the meditative and relaxing sides, but also that's been something my whole team has. They've been doing illustration and sculpture and woodworking and exercising these skills in another sense that they then bring back to make the core of how they're designing to help people more creative, more well worked out in those muscles. But then finally, I think now as things start to reopen, we're back in this sort of outwardly facing part of the empathy in all of this. We've sculpted, we've watched everything on Netflix. We want to do something for others. We're asking, how can we help? And my team, as well as a couple of the other teams, volunteered and created some pro bono emergency reopening signage that is easily printable on black and white on 9.5 by 11 letter size paper, so that small businesses who don't have a massive graphics team or marketing support or any of that can just print it for free. There's no paywall. Honestly, if anybody wants to see it, I have a link on my social stuff. But our whole thing was, we have these skills. We all have these unique skills. How can we give them away? How can we be lending them out to the situation that we're all in, but some people are really, really hurting from? And from the fun, weird little faces through to the pro bono wayfinding stuff, that's always been driven by experimentation, yes, but empathy, putting yourself into the other and trying to be of service.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, you put so many things together in that. I know that empathy was, does anyone else want to, kind of add to that statement? Because I know that was one of the topics that really resonated with several of you as we talked about this.
Well, if I may add something to this, I think that you're right. I mean, we're training empathy. When we imagine a project, we have to imagine, the end users. And so it's something that we learn to do. But I just want to add that also, we are also doing more pro bono work right now, because we figure that there is a chance to help organizations that we love and we believe in their causes, and might not necessarily have a budget to do a full rebranding or a communication strategy. So we're working on that field. But in general, I think that the pandemic has brought up, a need for empathy that is very layered, and I would say even empathy towards ourselves. If I think about, my need to do art, it's sort of like, I'm gonna also take care of myself a little bit right now, but also, empathy towards our employees. And I think Gareth touched on that. I mean, I think we all try to go through, jumping through hoops to keep everybody employed and on payroll. And that was always easy, and that's a form of empathy. And also towards our clients, because many of our clients had to sort of pivot very quickly, and they are suffering, and they're worrying about keeping their people on payroll. And so in a way, it's a form of empathy, saying, okay, let's roll up our sleeves right now. Let's do what we need to do to get you going. We're worried about, budgets and things like that, later on, but let's try to survive this moment together. And then, there is a bigger discussion here that I think Mike sort of touched upon. I mean, I think we're living a moment in which we as sort of privileged, designers who sort of work on a certain level have to question whether, and I'm just putting out there, I don't necessarily have the answer for this, but I have to question sort of what's our level of empathy for, other people, considering, what the country is going through right now, or what's happening, and what we read in the news. It's something that we internally, among friends and among colleagues, keep talking about. We have some solutions. I mean, we have some ideas. We have things that we've been doing, actually, working with local organizations and doing mentorship programs and things like that. But there is definitely a lot more that we can do as organizations that have the means to do it and have the talent to do it, and also as part maybe of professional organizations. And I think we're all it's a continuing discussion, and Chris probably has something to say about this, because she's a big initiator of what I think is a great initiative in this sense.
Oh yeah, I loved everything you said, Giona. Yeah, we at Novita at the start of this whole pandemic, realized that there particularly because of Italy, there were a lot of people that were really hurting in Italy, our clients and friends, and so we thought, let's try to do something on social to support each other for inspiration and sharing. And we did like a hashtag One with Italy, and then it kind of was. We realized really early on, when we were still in the office on March 13th, this is going to actually be bigger than Italy. It's the whole design industry. So we kind of looked at the hashtag design stance together, and that allowed us to sort of create this platform, which then kind of has been evolving. And we were able to kind of do a call for videos where people were talking about creativity in this time, and also wellness, and how connected creativity and wellness can be, both for ourselves and what we put out there in the world. So that's been on NeoCon, ended up liking it. So now we've been doing some of our content through them. So, and then with the recent social justice challenges, one of our colleagues and a senior VP with our group, Joseph Cephas, did an amazing session on diversity and design through that kind of platform. And we'll be doing part 2 on the 17th, on Friday. So it's just how do you pivot, create these moments, and on our side as a communication and PR social media agency, this is what we can do as a creative outlet and kind of gathering kind of moment. But it's really all, I think you're right. It's all kind of comes back to an empathy for everyone that's kind of going through this together, and it's not just one thing. It's obviously multiple crises we're experiencing. Mike, I know you wanted to add to that too.
I was just going to say that one of the, I think that Elizabeth said that she had this group of superheroes. I like that term, right? One of our special abilities when you are an artist or you are trying to exude creativity is listening. A lot of our clients, we ask a lot of them, especially if you're really kind of doing your job right? You are creating these innovative stories that tell a culture about a company, and that company makes up so many layers of different people and ethnicities and backgrounds. And how do you create a space that everyone feels welcome in? And I really think that empathy part really kind of boils down to kind of listening a lot and understanding and trying to put yourself in your shoes, like we were all talking about, that makes it very important, and also creates a powerful story that people can truly get behind and supportive of. You know, it's really amazing when you have a client or the people who work at the company that you've designed something for, and they are proud of the space and of the company that they work with. So a very important part is just listening sometimes.
That's so true. That was beautifully said. So thank you, Mike. Yeah. This leads into our kind of next question, which was about how creatives respond to isolation. I know that the creative process, can be, looked at from lots of different lenses, and what are the differences and values of the team dynamic versus the individual designer approach towards creativity. So this is something I think we've all been grappling on. We've touched on lightly, but how does that creativity kind of flourish in either setting, and how are we grappling with that? So Mike, I'm going to have you kind of continue on that one.
I hate it. Me personally, it was difficult at the beginning to understand how to have those moments with other designers to really create something. Everyone knows that as a designer or as a creative person, what we do is not an individual task. It is a group effort, and it has become, well, at least at the beginning, it was very difficult for me to do. It's something that I had to learn how to do over again because it's a different form of communication. But what I will say is that I do miss those accidental interactions with people, whether if it's a personal thing or creative thing. I'm reminded of IBM. Years ago, they said that a good portion of their staff could work from home at one point in time. And about 5 years ago, they realized that they were kind of falling behind on the technology game. And one of the things that they realized is that different departments weren't accidentally meeting up with other departments and kind of coming together to create this synergy that IBM was known for years and years and years. And they were falling behind on that. And what they did is they did a call to all of their employees to come back to the office. That's how important creativity is. There is that human, that empathy connection that we were talking about that's required for us to be creative beings. And it makes me wonder how this will change how people communicate with each other. We have tech companies like Facebook and Twitter saying that you can ultimately work from home as long as you want. I think that is an extreme result of this pandemic. But it also makes me question, how can a social media company not rely on social interaction to be creative? And I worry that some companies will fall at the wayside when they do things like that. I think that there's a balance to it. I think that we all need to understand that we need to be a little bit more flexible of how we work and when we work, and to allow people to feel more comfortable to come into the office. But the extreme end of going to completely remote, I think will hinder some companies in a way. So we need to be able to try to balance that out, personally and professionally.
That was really well put. So Gareth, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to echo those thoughts. Those are really good points and valid points, because oftentimes it's not what's said in the boardroom. It's those casual meetings at the coffee machine or in the lunchroom, and it's when you get different departments interacting, and that's when the magic really happens. And you also, I find that I was in the office the other day, and we do have a skeleton front office working, and it's lost the fun. You know, everybody is socially distanced, and you miss. I mean, the reason many of us got into this type of work is because it's enjoyable, and a lot of that I find is difficult to do when you're sitting alone in a room. You don't have anyone to bounce ideas off of. And I think something is definitely lost through this digital interaction. I know it can be done and we're all managing to do it, but I just simply can't wait to sit around a boardroom table again, or to just sit around the coffee machine and have a casual dialogue with somebody, because I think that's when the magic really happens.
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead, Giona.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to add on that just something that I have experienced, because like I said, HDR is so large. I have team members that I can't hang out with often, you know, that are across the country or the world. And so we don't have the luxury of those coffee moments that you do in smaller workplaces. I've felt as a positive coming out of this, or at least a hope coming out of this. One, we've gotten much better at figuring out how you do better connect. And a big key to that, if it's useful for anyone on here, is to set the work aside for a second, to actually be very mindful of the times that you get together in a way that's more playful. Like I pointed out all of the crud behind me, the things that are going on. A lot of that's been tied into us sharing with our counterparts in Germany and in California and many, many other places, that I hope I have the patience and the good memory to hold on to as things reopen. But the other side of it, from what you were saying, Mike, of how it's not necessarily as fun, that you miss that culture. I hope that we learn to be more mindful in how we do come into the office, that it's not necessarily, here are the hours I expect you to be there. Of course there is that, but that we don't allow it to slide into the rote every day, but that there is a bit more of a vision when you're bringing people in together, particularly after a long New York commute, that you're ready to do it in a way that's mindful and intentional and meaningful, versus here's where my desk is and I'm going to spend hours sitting at this desk at this screen and forget all of these awesome things that we did for that number of months when we were in our living rooms. So that's my hope for my team, and then hopefully for many other teams out there.
Yeah. If I can add to this interesting aspect of the discussion, I think that the fun part of working for me is learning and growing, and being together with people from different generations, from different cultural backgrounds. It really gives a chance for the studio to be a living organism that sort of grows together, and we learn from each other. We learn from each other, you know. We learn from the latest intern, you know, and they learn from me, and the designers learn from each other, and that's something that it's been missing. I think at the beginning we were sort of pleasantly surprised. Oh, we can do this, you know. We can work from home. Maybe we don't need an office, you know. We're being just as efficient. But after a few months, now I realized that yeah, we are getting the work done because we're professionals, but we're working in silos, you know. And there is no, I mean, there is the initial brief, the discussion, and then a job is presented. And it's sort of like, okay, take your leave, we can change this and that. But it's not the same as being huddling around the computer and say, you know, can you try this? Have you tried that? What if you do this and that? Or other interesting accidents. I'm a firm believer in accidents as a great source for great ideas. It happens with my collages all the time. Sometimes I cut something out and I put it in the trash. And then I look back and I say, you know what, the silhouette that I cut out is actually the thing. That's what's beautiful. It's not the thing that I thought I was gonna glue on the paper. So sometimes I see a designer working, I'm just walking by, you see somebody working on something and say, you know what you're doing is not really right for the project you're doing, but we can use it for the other project because, so you come, say the other designer, come over, take a look at this, what this person is doing is actually better for your project. Let's take it and move it there. So there are all these contaminations that I think are fun and from a personal level, we learn we have lunch together and we learn from each other. We tell each other stories, and I think it's the culture that I think you guys mentioned before that makes a place fun to work in, and that's hard to do right now.
Giona, one thing that I find that I just really thought of as you were speaking was the importance of young designers right now. And kind of working with them to help them create that stronger muscle when it comes to creativity and design. As much as we can kind of get through this, I worry sometimes that some of those younger designers aren't kind of picking up on what we do on our creative side because we're so distant from each other. I think that it can ultimately, if we stay apart from each other for so long, it will ultimately hinder people's growth within the firm so that we won't have that succession and we won't have those creative people to support us in those different roles. So kind of being able to nurture that at such a young age is something that's very important, that human connection makes a very pivotal part of what we do as designers.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's funny, that joy. I feel like I popped into my office yesterday, and the last time I'd been there had been in the evening, and it was really dark, and I was just like, oh, this is so sad. And then yesterday I went in, and it was just like all of a sudden I was just hit with the joy that we have when we go there together as a team, like just how damn fun it is to be there together, and like how much we love each other. Our group is really like so into it. And I just like really, the place also just had this feeling of that connection. I just felt it's just like seeing everybody's little desks and their funny things. And, we always have a really amazing, inspiring moment in the summer where we do like an offsite retreat, and it's like such fun sharing, and we always grow from that. So I've already been like thinking like, how am I going to kind of create a virtual retreat experience that feels like we can actually move forward as a team, and that we're, because we're seeing each other on regular Zoom calls. And I think you're right. We have a lot of fun together, but we tend to be kind of like more business, like who learned this, what's going on with this. And you lose that sort of extra time that goes into sharing meals together, or, going and doing stuff together, even taking the train together to a meeting. Like we're always kind of sharing things as we go. So, so these are things that we're missing. And I know that there are people that were sort of getting sick of trade shows, and now they're dying for trade shows to come back. Oh my God, I love trade shows. What was I thinking? And I think, getting sick of going to the office, I think we're going to come out in a different place. But, I just think this pause has allowed us to reflect on what we really value. And this kind of creative communities that we've all been so fortunate and privileged to be able to, to work in. I think that's a really a big takeaway for me. And yes, we're getting a lot done. And I think, one of our questions that's come in is about like environmental empathy, like how as designers, like, this pause is taking it, we're looking at, how this pause is affecting the planet, and does like, environmental empathy kind of come into, any of the work you're thinking about, or, it's not an exact question. It's just how are panels looking to nature and eco-justice as a means of creativity? So I don't know if anyone wants to talk at all about that. I think a lot of us that have been focused on environmental issues and sustainability have also looked, at some of the positives of the lower commuting kind of numbers and pollution, et cetera, and a lot of the negatives to some of these programs that we really believe in being cut. So I don't know if it doesn't exactly weave in, but it does in a way, if anyone wants to answer that.
I'll do a short answer so that I don't take up too much time, but we have a lot of people going for their WELL certification now that they're locked at home. They're using that to learn more and become better designers for the health, safety of ourselves, our space, and the planet. It's something that is just finally picking up steam and finally crossing paths with some of the other practices in sustainable design, like mass timber, which is a huge thing that our architecture teams have been developing more and more of. I don't yet think that we as an industry have even scratched the surface of what we can do in going beyond the mass timber into the rest of the human experience. You hear about LEED spaces and mass timber buildings, but that's usually, the numbers are coming from the structure of the building, not necessarily all of the rest of what's inside it. And so coming out of this with all of the designers that are getting their WELL certification and getting really more inspired and interested in doing their homework, I think it's an opportunity for all of us. I mean, I'm throwing that down as a gauntlet for all of us to be learning and doing more and sharing more, because it's exciting. It's the future.
Yeah, I can't say how much I love that question about how we are affecting the planet. Perkins and Will has been a leader in research and development regarding sustainability. One of the things that we have personally taken on, particularly in our DC studio, is understanding what that carbon footprint is and thinking about every single part and piece that goes into the space that makes for a better and healthier space to work in. It does have its challenges. We do make sure that, you know, a lot of our products are red list free and such, and a lot of our challenges sometimes are the clients themselves wanting something in particular, and they just want it, and they have their mind set on that. But we have to be able to educate them on the importance of it, because it's not only important to us, but it's important to the future leaders and the next generation. We've done a very good job at messing it up for them. And I think that this is our opportunity to kind of make things right or better. And they will be very, their senses will be very heightened when it comes to the sustainability of your company. It will be a selling point. It will be a recruiting and a retention tool. It will be something that the next generation will be proud of. And we need to, and just like Elizabeth said, you know, it's something that we all need to do, and we all need to do better. This is just a very quick moment in time that shows you that, yeah, we are kind of destroying this world bit by bit. And just by these few months that we've been out, things have started to change. And when we get back to it, what can we do to make it better for the next generation?
Muted again, sorry about that. Trying to prevent echoing, so I'm trying to be a responsible muter. Yeah, that was great to have someone like you, Mike, and Perkins and Will has been such a leader on that front, kind of make that statement. One of our folks that have written in was just talking about how cutting the commute and the cost on the environment of commuting, and also the sort of equity that having a work from home environment kind of provides for everyone. It's actually more, in some ways, I have found that in a lot of ways I'm interacting with all the staff members more, even more the junior ones, and even some of the interns more via the Zoom. They're getting more access to us in different ways through this period. So I thought that was an interesting point. Another question was just around like the performing arts, that the performing arts have really provided, and art have provided a lot of hope for us as a society. And I don't know, I think your idea of assisting with like signage and helping, kind of through the art that you're creating through the firm, I don't know if there's really a question in that, but I guess it was an interesting comment about the performing arts world, sort of how a lot of those artists have kind of got online and shared their creative output for free to kind of give people hope. And I don't know, as an industry, if we can be doing more of that too. I know that there's a lot more free consultations and online help for people. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts around that in terms of, you know, kind of this moment and how we share.
I think just everybody on this call or everybody listening in to think about the skills that you have and how you can share them. I mean, it's as simple as that, because for us, that was some pro bono wayfinding. For the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater in New York, that's putting all their classes online at a pretty inexpensive rate so that new people can explore dance that have never been able to afford, because that stuff is expensive. It is not approachable for most people. That's one of those things I'm hoping everybody can look inside and see how they can better share what they do every day, because this is a unique moment to really start that.
Anyone else want to add to that?
Well, just briefly, we're working on the identity for an independent cinema, and we started before the pandemic. So the plans obviously have changed because now there can be no cinema. So we're helping them pivot, a word that's been used a lot, pivot to a more digital presence. And so we are launching a new identity, trying to retain their core sort of public, but at the same time trying to reach to a younger audience who will be a better position to actually consume, you know, entertainment online. So we're sort of right on the edge of these two worlds right now, and it's one of those, you know, jobs that we're doing pro bono because it's an institution that we love and we've been friends with them for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in many ways, great design and architecture, when it's done well, gives hope. And I think that a lot of the thinking that goes into all of your projects and all the things that you're building, I mean, from, you know, just seeing, I know Gareth worked on this amazing project in Cleveland, the Fieldhouse, Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, and it's this amazing wall of light that, you know, where it was a part of Cleveland that was sort of dark, and I mean, it just there wasn't real, like, kind of the space now speaks to the community around the building and allows the community to kind of feel the impact of the light and the design and architecture of the space. And so there are ways that our work, I think, does create hope, and especially when you're considering sustainability and equity and you know, the access and all the things that kind of come into a great public spaces and great buildings. So so I think we're out of time, and I just love this conversation. I knew I would, so I was worried about technical issues and such, but it all worked out well. So I thank you so much. I know that there are more questions. We can share them. I know that there's just been some comments of, like, you know, encouragement from some of the audiences that are enjoying what we've been sharing. So if you want to send information, and I know NeoCon created a sheet with our sort of info on there, so we're happy to talk to folks, and you can, you know, follow us, and would be happy to communicate directly afterwards. If anyone else has anything they want to, I mean, I don't think we can take any more questions since we're just 2 minutes out. The group.
Well,
I think Gareth wants to say something. Gareth?
No, I was just going to say thank you for putting together such a wonderful panel, and it's been really enjoyable. And I mean, just on a leaving note, you know, I think that if we can do anything to help, you know, however small it might be, it's not only helps the people you're trying to help, but it also helps you, because I think we are inherently problem solvers, and we don't work well when we're being told not to do what we do. So just, you know, I encourage all of you out there to try and do something to help.
That was a nice way to end. All right, guys. So I'm not sure So yeah, you can find us also on the NeoConnect site. Oh, here it comes. Great. And the NeoConnect site has so much great information, including a video that Giona did, and that anyone wants to share videos of their sort of creativity, would love to kind of include that. And then also, tonight's the Architecture and Design Film Festival is running through Wednesday, so there's some great films happening there, and so much great content every morning and afternoon on NeoConnect. So I thank so much NeoCon for allowing us this opportunity, and I hope to see you guys in person very, very soon. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Great week, everyone. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Chris, Giona, Elizabeth, Gareth, and Mike, thank you so much for this very important and thought-provoking presentation today. We very much appreciate your time with us. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Please join us tomorrow for an introduction to regenerative design. And have a great day and be well. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.